Record to the cloud. Okay,
Yes.
great. And is it showing that it's recording?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, good morning. Thanks so much as I navigated my technical difficulties. Really appreciate you being here this morning. Um, I will start us from the beginning. I was going to have us do a little conversation in the chat to see how people feel about peeps, but we are a few minutes late in getting started, and so we won't go through that. But I will say I read something in the newspaper the other day that said that they produce 2 billion peeps a year, that's just more peeps than I think are personally necessary. But it was kind of eye-opening. So thank you for being here today. This is the second to last of our Title II Tuesdays. And before we jump into talking about our topic today, I just wanted to pause for a second to acknowledge all the things that are happening right now. We know what a busy time of year it is. There's a lot of things to look forward to in graduations and transitions. We also know that you're sort of scrambling to finish towards the end of the year. You've got budget planning happening right now, and sometimes that involves difficult decisions. So we acknowledge that, and on top of that, we don't yet know what the federal allocations are going to be for title programs. So that's something that we're navigating, and all of the executive orders that are coming out from this administration. There's been a lot of uncertainty around all of that. And in particular, the messaging around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we imagine that some folks might be wondering, are these activities we should be planning to continue given the kind of messaging that we're hearing? And so we just really wanted to take a moment to say what we know is true, which is that all of the activities that we're going to be discussing today, all of the things that Oregon districts are going to be sharing with us today, are in alignment with the purpose of Title IIA. That's really important to note. The guidance document that sort of prompted us to have this conversation was released by the Department of Education in December. It is still on their website. It is still relevant. And until such time as we hear otherwise, we are going to use it to help guide and focus our work. And then finally, I don't think you'll be surprised to know, based on the messages that we've been hearing from both Dr. Williams and from Governor Kotek, that Oregon believes in supporting all of its students and all of its staff, and that all of them be seen and heard. So all of those things are true, and it's really important that we have this conversation today. So I appreciate all the folks who are willing to share what they're doing to support diversifying the educator workforce. That's what we're here to talk about today. And we'll spend a few minutes just talking about why that's important. You already know because you're doing it. And we'll talk a little bit about some high-level information about where Oregon is in that regard. A few highlights on strategies that Title II can be used for to support diversification of the educator workforce. And then most of the time is going to be spent hearing from our 3 districts on their efforts in this area. If you joined us in February, we talked a little bit about the hierarchy of sort of information that is available about requirements in education. And we know that the statute, so in this case, ESSA, and the regulations, which are EDGAR and UGG, are really the highest level, sort of the most authoritative. They have the force of law. Non-regulatory guidance does not have the force of law, but its purpose is really to, the U.S. Department of Education is really trying to make the statute understandable. It's helping to operationalize the statute and help LEAs and SEAs know how they can implement this law that has been put into place. And it is updated fairly regularly, and there's been quite a bit of updating in the last 4 or 5 months. There have been 3 different non-regulatory guidance documents that have come out that relate in some way to Title IIA. And so this is the third of the 3. that we've been highlighting over the last few months. And it is focused exclusively on diversifying the educator workforce. It came out in December of last year, and it is really a best practice and strategies focused document. We spent some time talking about a document that was very specific to Title IIA. It was just about allowability in Title IIA. That's not what this document is. It really emphasizes braiding of funds, and it talks about the use of a variety of federal program funds to support diversifying the educator workforce. So it's important to know, if you are going to take a look at that document, that not necessarily everything in that guidance document would be allowable under Title IIA. It is not exclusively Title IIA, but there are lots of things that it highlights that Title IIA funds can be used to support. So why does it matter? As I said, you already know why it matters. That's why you're doing it. And I wanted to include this here because these are the data points that are highlighted in the guidance itself. I think that's important to note. They call out all of this, all of these reasons why diversifying the educator workforce is important. And of course, we can see ones that we are sort of the usual suspects, right? Statewide assessment results, graduation rates, absentee, or, attendance, all of those things. But it also highlights things like post-secondary outcomes, college going rates, and that participation in gifted and accelerated coursework. I think that's an outcome that is not always the first to come to mind when we think about the benefits of diversifying the educator workforce, but it does make a huge difference. So all of these things are important reasons why we need to do this work and why you all are doing it. And in Oregon, if you are not familiar with it, I would encourage you, I know you don't have a lot of free time to read things, but there is something called the Oregon Educator Equity Report that is a combined effort between the EAC, which is the Educator Advancement Council, TSPC, which is the Teacher Standards and Practices Commission, that's our licensing body in Oregon, and then HEC, which is the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. That's a lot of acronyms in one in one go. But they put together a report. They're required to report to the legislature on Oregon's progress in diversifying its educator workforce. We actually have state equity goals around ensuring that our teaching workforce reflects our students in Oregon. So you can see here that we still have progress to make, but the most current version of the report highlights the fact that the percentage of first-year teachers who identify as people of color has doubled in the last 10 years, so progress has been made there. And with classified staff, the percentage of classified staff identifying as people of color or racially or ethnically diverse has increased even more rapidly. So progress is being made. There is more work to do. But this report includes, in addition to those kinds of data points, it also outlines some evidence-based practices, as well as some recommendations for the state about ways to continue to improve those numbers. Okay, so we'll just spend a couple of minutes talking about the guidance document itself and sort of what it highlights, and then we'll get to the good stuff. The document has 4 areas of focus. There's 2 that we're really going to highlight today in our conversation with districts, and those are around financial incentives and creating positive teaching conditions. So before we talk about those, just kind of connecting back to ESSA, again, this document talks about other funding sources outside of just Title IIA. But in terms of what is allowable under Title IIA, you can see the connection here in some of the highlighted areas, right? So there is an allowance within Title IIA for incentive or differential pay for particular individuals using Title II funds. Of course, the induction and mentoring programs are another key feature of Title IIA. allowing for teacher, principal, and paraprofessional advancement, and multiple pathways. We're going to hear a little bit about that today, as well as feedback mechanisms for staff to share about their experience of the workplace, as a way to ensure teacher retention, right? So all of these areas are ways in which Title IIA funds can be used. And we see that in terms of financial supports and incentives in a lot of districts in Oregon. We see that tuition assistance, and exam fees, so helping staff become endorsed in a particular area of need that the district has identified. Some of the folks on the call today, I know, are doing that with their funds, providing stipends to staff in particular content areas or subjects, to ensure that they can fill those positions. That housing assistance that you see, that third bullet there, when we met and talked about allowability under Title IIA specifically, there are a number of financial incentives that I was not even aware of, and housing assistance is one of them. Again, as a way to recruit and retain staff. There's even an aspect of supporting childcare for those staff as a way to help improve teacher recruitment and retention. So lots of different ways that you can use Title IIA funds as an incentive. We're going to hear a little bit about Grow Your Own today from our friends in Jefferson County. And then those teacher residency programs, there are specific requirements under ESSA about what a teacher retention program needs to look like with Title IIA funds. But again, there's a pretty broad spectrum of how you can use those funds for this purpose. And then creating that positive and supportive teaching conditions. Induction and mentoring is one that we hear about and see a lot, making sure that teachers who are new to the profession really have the opportunity to be supported in those first, ideally more than just their first year, as they come into their own in this profession. Supporting the cost of climate surveys, so hearing from all staff from diverse backgrounds about their experience of their school and their working conditions. Title IIA funds can be used to help pay for those costs associated with that. Affinity groups, we're going to be hearing today from Forest Grove about their work with affinity groups, which really provide space for connection for staff and allow for networking and support, and really can help reduce feelings of isolation when it comes to teaching. And then that last bullet, the guidance does highlight that we should also be thinking about leaders in our districts. And I do want to note that for Title II, superintendents would not necessarily be an allowable use of Title II funds. Again, this document talks about funding sources from a variety of different federal programs. But it is important to note that those leaders both help create the climate and culture in their buildings and are heavily engaged in the recruitment of new staff. So it's always important to remember that we're not just talking about teachers in this particular case. Okay, that is enough talking from me. And what I really want to do is spend the rest of this time hearing from districts. So I will pause for just a second to see if anybody has any questions. And then after that, we'll get started. Okay. Well, again, I really want to thank all of the districts who are joining us today at this busy time of year with your busy schedules. Appreciate you taking time to share your great work with us. And we're going to start with Melinda Boyle from Jefferson County.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to present to you this morning. So Jefferson County School District represents a very diverse community in Central Oregon. A third of our students are American Indian, a third are Latino, and a third are Caucasian. We began a Grow Your Own program for our schools to increase and retain we wanted teachers who reflect the racial demographics of our students. So back in 2015, we were at 2%. Today, we are at 7%. It takes a long time to build, but I think we're doing a good job of increasing that at the best we can. And so oops, sorry, it flashed, so I didn't know that. So
Apologies.
yep. So anyway, so we started in 2015. We actually began without a grant, but then we did secure the Grow Your Own Educator grant from the state of Oregon back in 2015. And so we've been in this work for the last 10 years now. And so that's an exciting piece. And you can move forward for me. So our work starts with 5 pathways. So when we first began, we were targeting working adults in our system, especially those who had an associate's degree, because we were able to, we have a really strong partner in George Fox University. They actually came into Redmond, which really helped us a great deal. And they developed a program in partnership with us that's a 2-year program if you have your associate's degree, where our working adults go one evening a week and one Saturday a month. And then the second year, they're co-teaching in our classrooms in the position they already had. So they're continuing to get paid as an educational assistant if they were already in our classrooms. And so within 2 years, they get their bachelor's in education K-8, which is really exciting. So that was our very first program that we began. Then the next program or pathway we have is we developed an early childhood education CT pathway at our main high school, which is Madras High School. And so working with another really strong partner, Central Oregon Community College, we were able to develop an articulated dual credit early childhood pathway program for our high school students to help them to become our next candidates. And over the years of developing that program, we our students, if they work really hard, can actually graduate with an associate's degree in early childhood education, what takes them straight into that bachelor's program for another 2 years, which is exciting. One of the things that's been really successful with that program is peer tutoring, not only within our schools and in our 21st Century After School program, but also in our early childhood partners throughout our community. So our students actually are assigned to be peer tutors across our community. The ones that work in our 21st Century program and our summer programs are actually able to be paid, so they earn minimum wage because of our Grow Your Own grant, and they also get a credit for participating in that. Every 60 hours, they receive a high school credit for school to work. So that's our second pathway that we developed. Our next pathway was for an associate's degree for working adults who did not have any education or partial education up to their associate's degree. And so that again was focused on early childhood education. And we contracted with our local community college. We're lucky to have a campus in our community to offer classes after school hours where our staff could go and take classes and build that nurturing cohort type program. And so we would offer classes on the pathway to their childhood that we would prepay, provide all their books, and try to make it a really strong cohort. For example, coming straight to work, if they didn't have dinner and the teacher was willing, we could provide dinner for the students and do that. So that's been a strong program also. Our next program, which is one that is just in the development phase and that we're so excited about, but it's a language immersion program pathway. And so our partners, George Fox University, actually got a pathway approved through TSBC and the proper channels to have a language pathway for both our native language and our Spanish speaking students. And so we have an endorsement pathway. And so in this pathway, they can start at the associate's level with our local community college, or they can start at the bachelor's degree if they already have that. But the model's been built so that it's an internship. So we'll talk about the native language, which we're just starting. So teachers, future teacher would be placed with a kindergarten teacher, and they would teach all year with that teacher, but at the same time with our partners, the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs, they would earn their native language teaching and certificate at the same time because, as you know, that's a really big part of this is to revitalize their language because I think they have 6 native language speakers that are their elders left at this moment. And so it's really important to them. And there are 3 languages, so it's a little complicated. but we're starting with the most popular language right now, which is Chichkin. And so that's really exciting. And so we'll keep you abreast of how that works. The other program that we have is we have a dual immersion Spanish program in 2 of our schools. So we're also supporting those students through our Grow Your Own grant. And I know I'm talking fast, so stop me. Teacher advancement is our last one in retention. And so this is really focusing on the teachers that we have and giving them resources and support so that we can keep them here, because we're learning as we survey our teachers and do affinity groups and things, that that connection to others across the district is the #1 reason that makes them stay in our community. And so with that, we just finished a reading endorsement program with 21 students who have earned their reading endorsement. And with our Grow Your Own grant, we actually prepaid for them. They didn't have to go through the tuition reimbursement or anything for that program, their books, their classes. And George Fox, our partner, came actually into our district and taught those classes here, which has been exciting. We're getting ready to offer an ESOL one that starts this summer, and so we're excited about that. So we're recruiting for that cohort right now. And we also have a SPED partnership with George Fox, where our future SPED candidates can get their tuition paid for. And all of that happens within district, which is pretty exciting, so that our teachers don't have to travel to Bend or Redmond to take those classes. One of the most successful programs, and I know that you've talked about this before, and one of the things that Title II has funded for us in the past years is the teacher induction and mentoring. And so when our teachers get here, we want to try to make them feel like they're the most important people in the world and provide them the resources to get to know our community and our students. So we begin with a week-long induction in August, where they actually take community tours. They get to hear from our community partners. We provide them with collaboration time where they get to know their colleagues that are in this cohort also. And then that's followed up with a monthly mentoring program for their first 2 years in the district. That includes a monthly meeting, peer observation opportunities, and they do a project based on Zaretta Hammond's work. It's called a learning partnership, where they select one student and they work with that student all year long. And then our May meeting, as where that culminates, they get to present the changes they've seen with that student implementing some of Zaretta's strategies for engaging their students. One more slide. So this is just about our growth since 2015, but we've increased the diversity of our teaching staff. In 2018, it was 2% for American Indian, Native American teachers. We are now at 7%. And interesting, but the same percentages with our Latino teachers are now have increased from 2 to 7%. And then the other benefit of that is our Caucasian, our white teachers has decreased to 81% to show that. And then we have 6% also as an increase with our other demographic populations. We have 21 current educators who just finished their reading endorsement. I already told you. Our early childhood pathway this year has 247 students enrolled in it at Madras High School, who are also earning dual credit that we also provide the payment for that on for those students. So they don't have any out of pocket to earn those credits. Over the life of this grant, we have already awarded $320,000 in scholarships, with 40 future educators receiving those. And we're actually in the process right now of it just closed yesterday, our spring award opportunity, and we have more applications than we've ever had. And so we're excited, especially the high school student applications have dramatically increased. So that is very exciting. We use blended funding with this program tremendously. Like I told you, there are some pieces with Title IIA. We have a state mentoring grant right now that will end in June, but we also have been participating in the educator pathways and the Grow Your Own grant. And so that's how that's all blended together. And I guess at the celebration right now, there are 4 high school students who are graduating this term in April from George Fox and Oregon State University in May that have gone all the way through our Grow Your Own program. And so we're really, really excited. They started in high school and now, and I will tell you that 3 of those are already hired in positions for our district for this coming school year, and 1 is in the process. So I'm sure that all 4 of them are going to have positions by probably in the next 2 weeks. So that's a big celebration for us.
Wow, Melinda, thank you so much. This is just I was going to ask you to clarify that not all of this is funded out of Title II-A, and you did that beautifully. So we recognize that you have multiple funding streams, but I love the fact, you pointed out 247 students are participating in this opportunity. So it's reaching down, into your student population, and now, as you shared, you've got they're becoming part of your staff. So this is just a really really great program, and appreciate you taking the time to share it. I don't think that your contact information got included on any of the slides, so I apologize for that. But if you want, and I'll add it to it before we post it on the website, but if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat for anybody who might be interested, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Are there any questions for Melinda about the work that's happening in Jefferson County? Okay, well, again, appreciate you sharing that, and I'm very excited to see how it continues to grow.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We're going to transition now to Hillsborough and hear a little bit about the work that they're doing supporting their multilingual learners.
I do have questions. I'm sorry, I had to
Oh,
mute
yes,
myself.
Greg, go
Had
for it.
difficulty doing this. I mean, I'm really interested in all the things that I'm hearing. I worked with an Even Start literacy program for parents who are Spanish speaking in the home, and predominantly. And they were the ones who weren't being advanced, and it was really an eye opener because they weren't really included. What happened was we helped out the students, but the parents weren't empowered to really work with their own students. They didn't know what they were learning, and it was most challenging for them. So when they became involved, they started working in the school. They started working in the classroom. So when I see that we have the intention of growing our own, I'm wondering whether you have a program that invites the families that are not speaking English in the home to then come into the classrooms and be part of this moving forward. Just one question that I have. I have others, but can we start with that one?
That's a great question, Greg. Thanks for asking.
Sure.
We have a program called Family University that I also work with, and so that program provides English classes for our Spanish-speaking families, and so that has been a huge connection for us. We provide lots of other classes like student behavior and technology and things that our parents have requested. But that meets on Wednesdays at a center that we call it Family University, and it's been a great connection piece. Another connection that started from that program is a program called La Clase, and on Wednesdays, our Latino parents volunteer and come in and teach their students Spanish literacy side by side with our staff. And that both of those have been great pulls into our system. So I do have parents who are from those systems working in the schools a lot, but also that are in the education pathway. We've had parents who have been newcomers and actually have degrees like in Mexico, or I had one in Peru, and we will assist them to actually have their transcripts translated and help them to apply for licensure through TSPC or get them evaluated so that they can meet with our community partners to get their education degree in the US. And so those are both perfect pathways. The Family University and the La Clase program have been strong supporters for our program and pathways.
I also heard, I met with someone who had the students that did not have a written language. most interesting challenge there.
Yeah.
And I suggested, what about AI? Because it does things phonetically depending on the language. And it might be a good way for people to see how languages are spoken in each and start looking from oracy into, for literacy, syntax and how it differs for different cultures. Is any work done on that? Because that's kind of a key thing. And the other bridge is, of course, singing, because
Mhm.
singing is where language gains meaning. Reading doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And grammar doesn't, I mean, all these strands are ways of getting in. I'm curious about any of those.
Yeah, actually, that is the core of our native language program. We have three tribes, the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs is made up of, and they're a really strong partner. I work with them daily. Valerie Swissler is their education director, and it's all about revitalizing their language and getting their language in our classrooms. And so, over the last several years, we actually do have the three languages in our school from K through 12 in June, we're going to, or May, sorry, we're going to be able to award our first CO by literacy certificates for right now 5 native language speakers. But those 3 languages are not written. So none of the
Mhm.
tribes, so we have Kitch, Numu, and Echishkin, like I told you before, and none of them are written because if you talk to them, and I think it's one of the richest things my experience has been, they tell you that it's all through stories and songs and music, but it's here, it's in my heart. It's not written down. And so we are working with them every day trying to create a pathway that will live throughout this process. And that language pathway where we have a native language teacher who eventually will be a certified K-8 teacher in our classrooms is going to be a tremendous strength for that, where I think you will start seeing that. But I like your AI reference. I haven't tried that out with them yet, but I think that's something to look into.
It's certainly a way of sharing it with other people.
Yeah.
In other words, the other students, because I think ideally, you would like students to teach each other their languages, because that's where the students lead rather than the teachers leading. And it empowers them in ways that teachers leading doesn't. And I think it's a transition that people are talking about right now, and it might be worth exploring, especially since you've got all this stuff going on. It sounds really quite wonderful. And I hope I can, as a as a reading specialist and having signed up for subbing with my own district in Ben Lapine, might be able to visit classrooms and see these things happening. My wife is leaving on a vacation, so I can probably get out of the house a little bit more and circulate. So I'm curious about being able to view this in other
Absolutely.
programs.
Just let us know.
Okay.
The other thing is for the Grow Your Own, because we have the native language, 3 languages being taught in our high school right now, we're also recruiting those into the early childhood. So those are our future teacher pathways. So yeah,
Good.
exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melinda and Greg. Thank you for your great questions. Really appreciate that. And I think, Melinda, you're putting your contact information in the chat
Yep.
so that Greg can reach out to you perhaps to set something up. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to talk about Hillsborough, and Arsema is here to join us to tell us about how they're supporting their multilingual learners.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always excited to talk about our are the steps that we're making for to recruit and grow our BIPOC staff. And so we know that the reason why we do that is because it leverages our students' cultural and linguistic wealth to ensure equitable access to quality education. And we do this by leveraging students' assets and their identities to enhance the instructional and learning experience of our diverse population. Currently in Hillsborough, 62% of our students are students of color. 22% of our students are active ELs, and 22% of our students are dual language students, and they're not necessarily the same students. We have a combination of different students from different cultures that are part of our dual language cohort. If you go to the next. So we know that I think I'm going to just reiterate what everybody else said. We can't do this work with just Title II funds, so we do braid with other funds to be able to enhance the outcomes for our multilingual learners. Some of the things that we do is investing in professional development and educator quality. So we do this through mentorship. We provide mentors for every new admin. And we do, even if we have to go out of our district, we do provide mentors that can relate to our admin of color better so that they can have those conversations needed in order to grow. And we provide this for the first 3 years of their administrator experience. We have a mentor, a full time mentor that provides supports for our dual language new licensed teachers. And we also have building-based mentors that are connected to every new licensed teacher, and they provide ongoing support. And those teachers in the building get stipends for supporting our new teachers in the buildings. Our dual language teachers get both the in-building coach and also the district mentor, so they get that double support. Most of our dual language schools also have instructional coaches, and they provide that additional support as well for our teachers to help them with their instructional practices. We do invest in recruiting, hiring, and retaining highly qualified personnel. And some of the ways that we do this through our Grow Your Own program. We have a classified pathway, and within that pathway, we recruit classified staff that either have had a teaching license from their country or a different state sometimes, and we support them in getting all of that. If it's from a different country, then translated and submitted to a university to get them the credits that they need in order for them then to fulfill the requirements that Oregon has for them. And we have a student cohort pathway too, and that's our bilingual and diverse educator pathway scholar program. And these are students that we recruit during high school. And during high school, there are high school interns. Some of them come from our CTE program, the early childhood program. Some of them are just students who want to become educators. We started in 2015 because we had a huge need for dual language teachers. So it began as a bilingual educator pathway program, but then it evolved to also diverse. So now we not only have students who want to become educators who speak Spanish, which is our dual language target language, but also students who are BIPOC that speak other languages or may not speak other languages, but they're diverse. And so our cohort has grown. We have about 80 students in this cohort. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the BDEP program in the next slides, but that is another one for our students and our high school interns. And then we have a program called Building Leaders Together, and these are for teachers who are interested in leadership roles. Like they may want to go and become a teacher on special assignment, or they may want to become an instructional coach, or maybe they want to switch to maybe special education, or maybe they want to become a counselor. And so we invite teachers who have started with those skills to come and join this group, and we meet quarterly and we go over different aspects of leadership and go deeper with the instructional framework and have people that are in these different roles to come and speak about their own experience and how that transitioned helped them grow and how they've been able to grow as a leader. So these are teachers who want a leadership experience, but they're not looking at becoming administrators. Our future leaders cohort are teachers who want to become administrators, and these are educators who may be in a administrative program already, or maybe thinking about going into an administrative program, but they're already there. They meet monthly, and they get professional development, and also they get a mentor. And they come and they talk about different aspects of administration and leadership. Um, they are they take a journey through the district. They have dilemmas that are put in front of them, and then they discuss how to solve these dilemmas. And so I was part of that when I was a leader at my building. I was part of Future Leaders, and so it was a really good experience for me. It's gotten better after I got in there, so there are more experiences that they're being exposed to than when I went through that. And then this one is new. This one is the executive leadership cohort, and this is for administrators who want to, maybe they're wanting to explore a different or a higher level administration position, or maybe a different position within administration. And so maybe they're a principal and now they want to explore the idea of becoming maybe a director at district office, or maybe they're a vice principal, they want to be a principal. And or another, maybe an assistant superintendent, maybe a superintendent. And we meet quarterly, and we talk about just different aspects of leadership at the executive level, at the district level, or maybe even at the state level. And so we're in our second year of this. And the way that it's being set up is that if you were in the first cohort, you're in for 2 years, and then it opens up again for a new cohort to be in there for 2 years. Professional development to improve the quality of teaching workforce. We have institutes. We have the Dual Language Institute. We have professional learning communities. We have a leadership collaboration that happens every quarter, and where we bring in leaders from every building, and we talk about our strategic plan, our goals that we have for content, language, and equity. And we review those. We make plans to take things back to our schools and then bring it forward. And we also have workshops that are monthly, specifically for dual language. These workshops happen in Spanish. This is something that our teachers had requested. Something that I didn't put here, and it's part of the recruiting and hire and keeping, making sure that we keep our teachers, is that we do provide a stipend. We have two versions of a stipend. One is the bilingual stipend, so anyone who speaks two of the target languages for our highest populations in our district, which is Spanish and Vietnamese. They get a stipend for being able to speak that language and provide supports to the district for that language, those languages. And then our dual language stipend, which is a little bit higher than the bilingual stipend. And the dual language stipend is for those teachers that are teaching in Spanish, as a recognition of like that extra work that they have to do in order to do that. The other thing, we have we provide our ESL endorsements in partnership with Western Pacific University and OSU, and that is a program that we've had for a long time, and we've had over like hundreds of teachers getting their ESL endorsement through the years. So this is one example. So our 2015 BDEP program, remember our high school interns and our college students who are in this pathway. We've been able to hire 23 educators, and 6 of them have been elementary licensed staff, 4 middle school licensed staff, 5 high school licensed staff, and 8 classified staff. And those hard to fill positions that we have in our district, we started a program with our HR and to be able to fill in those positions with our BDP scholars. We call them scholars, and that has been very successful. The principals are really happy with the students. The reason being is that these scholars come to work in our summer school every year. We pay them $18 an hour plus $2 if they're bilingual. And so they're coming in and they're learning how to teach small groups. They're mentored by a teacher during the summer, and then they're also teaching the clubs in the afternoon for the students, and the mentor teacher helps them with that. And so that has been a very good way to get them prepared. So when they come into the classroom as classified staff, they are just ready to go. And as elementary and secondary educators, our first cohort we hired in 2020. Remember what happened then? And that was very actually good, because that year in July, we did not cancel summer school. We actually had summer school online, and they were teaching summer school online. And so when they started in the fall of 2020, they were able to be online comfortably. And to this day, every single teacher educator that we've hired through this program has stayed and has been successful in the program. And these are some of the data points of like the work that we've done, not just through the DBEP, but also the classified program. And we've been able to grow from 2015 to 2020. You can see there's every category are classified, licensed, administrators in comparison to the percentage of students that we have in our district. And we're growing every year. There's not as high growth between 23 and 24 because we couldn't hire very many new teachers. We're in the same boat this year. I don't know if we're going to have any growth because we actually have teachers floating in the air that we need to put in classrooms right now. So we'll see what happens with that. The fortunate thing is that we don't have very many scholars ready to graduate this year. So the biggest cohorts are coming in the next few years. So hopefully we can get them all jobs by the time they start teaching. If you go to the next one.
I think that's the contact. Yes, thank you, Arsa.
Yeah, so this picture is our DBEP scholars last summer when we gave them their professional development. This is my little army that comes in and supports our summer school. We're going to have 20 extra this year, so it's going to be a bigger group this year. So I'm really proud of this group of students. I'm the person in charge of that with Brenda Chavez, who's the connector who supports all of these beautiful people. And then Kim Bayer, she works in HR, and she's the one that supports our classified staff that are becoming educators. And of course, our Travis and our assistant superintendents and executive directors are the ones supporting the teachers want to become administrators, and the administrators want to become executive staff. And I support, along with the other directors, the teachers want leadership opportunities. We do those sessions with them. And so I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Arsema. That is, I really appreciate the breadth of the program that you're describing, across students, teachers, administrators, and I'm sensing a common theme. You are a product of the program. Melinda was talking about students who are a product of their program. So clearly these programs work and continue to thrive, which is really wonderful. And I want to make sure we have time for Osvaldo to share from Forest Grove as well. So if there are additional questions for Arsema, if you'd be willing to put them in the chat, we'll make sure we capture those and be happy to stay on to answer questions after. But I do want to make sure that Osvaldo gets a chance to share what they're doing in Forest Grove. So I'm going to move us along, but yes, please put them in the chat if you have them. So Osvaldo, please talk to us about what's happening in Forest Grove.
You'll need to unmute.
Thank you. One of the advantages of being the last one is that I can say ditto to all of that. So first of all, really happy to see everything that is going on in the different districts. We are doing some similar things in Forest Grove. Obviously, the recruitment, hiring, and retention of the diverse workforce is one of the pillars of our district strategic planning. We have a direct, or we see a direct connection between these supports and also, in the improvement in the instructional practices. I mean, that, makes us focus a lot on multicultural education, teaching for social justice, um, any curriculum adoption, making sure that it connects with the diversity that we need to represent. So that's the goal. I mean, obviously we know that there is a disconnect between the student demographics and the staff demographics, and all the efforts are being, implemented in trying to bridge that gap. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So here are the numbers I was referring to. You can compare the percentage of staff versus the students and see, like in the Hispanic Latino community, is abysmal. And if you even go to putting together all who consider themselves or identified as BIPOC, is even a larger margin. So that's the reason why this becomes a focus. Let's go to the next one. So there are a number of initiatives that we have embraced in Forest Grove, affinity groups, the Grow Your Own program, the mentoring program, and the Teacher Connect. Within the affinity groups, which is the main focus of my presentation, we have specific focus on BIPOC staff. We have a specific focus on intersectionality of BIPOC staff and members of the LGBTQ plus community. We also develop affinity groups within the tribal history, shared history component. We want to make sure that there are staff members who have the ability to meet, seek professional development, and training to support Mesoamerican education. We have a number of students who come from Central America that are not necessarily included in this tribal history, shared history by the state. So we took the initiative of creating an affinity group to support those students. One of the things that we discussed within the BIPOC affinity groups are the possibilities for leadership. Staff members talk about a number of initiatives. We provide scholarships for the summer school so that they have internships. We also seek additional funding to purchase Rosetta Stone licenses so that staff members can learn a second language. We provide tuition assistance programs, not only for ESOL endorsements, but also to complete, course studies. We also have a bilingual staff stipend for, any candidates to actually take the exam. Once they pass the exam, then they get that increase in their pay rate. And we also have a specific focus on classified employees. I mean, we have a grant of approximately $550,000 that have been specifically designed to grow all staff, but have a specific focus on classified. So other programs that we have is the mentoring program and the Teacher Connect, but I kind of wanted to focus today on the affinity groups and how that has made a tremendous difference. So that's it for today.
Thank you, Osvaldo. And I appreciate the multiple ways, all of the presentations we've heard today, but we're seeing it particularly on the screen right here with Forest Grove, the idea that there's not just one way within each of these methods, right? There's not just one affinity group, there are multiple. So making sure that we are not looking at things as a monolith, right? And addressing the specific context and needs of each of the communities is a theme that's coming across in everybody's presentations today. And Osvaldo's slides that he shared with me had a number of really great photographs of staff and students within the Forest Grove District and the work that they're doing. So I apologize that I couldn't include all of those that he had to share today. Any questions? We do have a few minutes left, so I know there was a question in the chat for Arsema, and if there are any questions for Osvaldo, please feel free to put those in the chat. And I don't know, Arsema, if you responded or not, but Greg asked a question about whether your workshops are collaborative, where teachers share approaches and reflect on how students might have more agency in the learning activities. That was what he put in.
Yeah, I did respond to him. We do, our workshops are collaboratively created with our teachers. So we have different topics that teachers have requested workshops on. And so we throw those topics out, and then we say, who would like to collaboratively plan this workshop with one of the TOSAs, right? Or the TOSA in charge. And so they collaborate to create it, and then they collaborate to present it. And yes, we want it to be something that is meaningful to the teachers. So having that teacher voice is so important to be able to have that. And so we also at the end of every workshop, we gather feedback. And if the feedback says, hey, it'd be great if it looked at like this, next time we always take that feedback and accommodate the workshops based on what they need and what they want.
Thanks, Arsema.
I
Yes, Osvaldo.
I would like to also share the importance of our summer school program, because it is a microcosm of our entire school year. We run a summer program with everything that a regular school day or program looks like. And but the beauty of it is that it is a safe space for staff members where they are classified and they want to try teaching in the classroom, or where there is a teacher who is working in their admin license and they want to co-lead the program. So it is just a couple of examples of how we provide the environment of support, and not only for a staff of color, but also for all staff members. But I think it's important because when our BIPOC community appreciates the inclusion of white allies. And when we have our summer school having staff of color in mind, designed with them in mind, but also being supported by everybody else, that brings a sense of power and purpose. So I just kind of wanted to share that out of all the things that we work on, we are very proud of our summer school.
Thank you, Osvaldo. That is a great way to end this. I could not have said better any of the things that you all have shared today. You are doing the work, and it's really important that we hear your voices. So thank you so much for taking the time today to share that with us. I put a few links here to some of the resources that we talked about today, but they're not nearly as important as the connections that I hope you can make with the people who have shared here today. And again, we will be posting this on the website so that you can reach out and learn more if you would like to. I am going to stop the recording. And say thank you